Good morning, everyone. This is Robert Schmid. I am Deloitte's Chief IoT Technologist, also known as Mr. IoT. And today I'm here with Chaz August. Chaz, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks for asking. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too. So we are reporting live from CES today. And today we're bringing you from behind the camera, in front of the camera, because you always produce these shows with us. And today you are with me in Vegas. Actually, we're at different places, but we went to the show yesterday. And so I thought I'll bring you in front of the camera. Was this your first time at CES?
Oh, no, not by a long shot. My first time at CES was January of 1982. And it was a whole different world. It was just a whole different world. So
what is this like when you come here to CES for the first time? And by the way, tell us how it was the first time in '82 and how it is different today.
Yeah. Well, so the first time when I was there in '82, the big consumer electronics news was video games. From like 1978 to 1982, Atari had burst on the scene. Nintendo had its first attempt in. Mattel had a machine in. Commodore had a machine. So the big movement, and so everything was video games. Okay, and video games is very much like the movie business. It's all glitz, and so how was it? Well, it was overwhelming, and it was amazing, and it was loud, and everything. It felt like for me, it felt like I had dropped into another planet. Okay, and that part is still kind of true. I have to say, all these years later, when we finally got on the show floor, oh my goodness gracious, there's 175,000 people who are all looking at every gadget and gizmo and every things you can't even imagine somebody's producing and selling or is going to produce and sell. I was amused at how many times we asked people, well, can we buy this product? Oh, well, we're going to ship in. Well, it'll be available in, So I get it. It's product launches. And anyway, so it's very overwhelming. It's very loud. It's very big. I got to say, the process of like how you register and get in the door has not changed in 30 years. Yep. But I mean, the waiting online to get your badge, the whole, it just has not changed in 30 years.
So first of all, I got to say it's interesting that you talk about video games, right? I work for Activision Blizzard, and they're not even here anymore. Neither is EA or any one of the bigger game companies, because they have their own show now. So any show that gets big enough does their own thing. But also, I don't know, it's not the floor for them either, right? But the thing that is so true, as you said, is that, so I guess what I'm saying is with that, I'm wondering which other show is going to spin out of CES, what's going to be big enough to make their own. But the thing is really, it is baffling, right? You walk in there and you get like a paper thing. It has a near field thing in there that has your contact info, but that's about it. I mean, it's archaic. It's archaic to think that we can't use our phone and that we have to stand in a line for, I don't know, it was an hour to get the badge. But yes, tons and tons of people, very overwhelming in terms of, I don't know, I'm not as much of an extrovert as people think, and it sucks the energy out of me by the end of the day. So anyhow, I wanted to briefly sort of like, when we met in the morning, one of the things before the show, one of the things we said is, what do we want to actually really look at? And so the thing that I'm always wondering is, and it's been interesting for me in many other areas, the consumer software has started to lead the business software. And that's new, right? Because in the old days, everybody thought you get better email at work than you would get at home, and now that's probably flipped. But in any case, I was wondering if the same is happening for IoT. And so I walked the floor really wondering about, when is mixed reality actually replacing CES? I mean, do you think that eventually we don't have to fly to Vegas anymore, pay expensive hotels, all these things, and we can actually just sit there and go to CES on a virtual mixed or augmented reality base? What do you think?
It's always a little hard to predict the future. I thought I knew what the world was going to, well, in 1982.
That would be rich if we could.
Yeah. So, but it is fascinating to think that if We looked at a lot of different technologies that let you look at a 3D version of reality through a set of goggles that's pretty. Some of them are pretty mind-boggling. They're pretty technology that created it in CGI, technology that where they inserted you into a place. All kinds of now. That technology needs to get more sophisticated. The goggles are clunky, and it's like wearing a welder's mask. But I can imagine that maybe not just CES, maybe not just business gatherings, but even sports gatherings, even any place where you've got a limit of how many physical people you could put in. I think the technology is close to present where you could have an unlimited number of people, but they're all there virtually. They're not there. And with VR and AR, with augmented reality, it might actually be better to be there virtually, right? You'd be sitting in your home, kind of touring the show floor, able to feel like you're walking around, which we had an experience of, right? Not at the show, I mean, but walking around with this thing, with your VR device on, and getting little augmented reality information wherever you wanted the information. Yeah, I think perhaps what's going to happen is there's going to be two different things. There's going to be a physical show floor because some things you just want to touch and handle, and sometimes you just want to be in the environment, and because the shows have a lot of purposes that aren't sometimes it's for the team spirit. You bring your team to CES in a way to reward them and show off what you've been doing, and some of those can't be done virtually, I don't think. But yeah, I think a lot of this experience, maybe 5 years from now, when the technology is a little more portable and a little more attractive, I think, yeah, maybe a lot of these shows, a lot of these big events, yeah, you pay one fee if you want to go. You pay a different fee if you want to just sit in your own home or at your office desk and pretend to walk around.
So we looked at a bunch of different wearable glasses, right? And I have to say, people give Google a lot of crap for Google Glass. And then I walked through the show 3 years later, and there's still way worse looking, way clunkier glasses that people try to sell, particularly to the enterprise. So when I think of businesses, and I haven't really, I mean, there was one, I saw a lot of bad ones, and then I saw the ODG glasses. Remember those, where there was like a big round table, and we were like all around looking into it. And then, I mean, I think the most vivid one, the one I like the most, and it's not really business, but there was some business-related stuff where and I can imagine a smart city where you look around and you point at things, and that could be cool. But then there was the one that I thought was really interesting, where they had in the back a video of a live football game. Then they paused the game, and then they underlaid flat underneath it, sort of almost a video game style, 3D players, and they had to move with arrows. So I don't know if you remember when they go and like they draw on the analysts draw. It's just terrible looking, right? And then you saw this, and it was just like, wow. I have to say the ODG glasses were one of the ones from a mixed reality point of view that I personally like the best. Although I have to say that the virtual reality ones, the ones that you still have to be in, and they're big. And not only are they big, I don't really mind that so much, because if I sit there, that's fine. But they have to be connected, which it needs to get untethered for it to be real. Yeah. And then, the thing that was cool was some of the virtual reality that I saw was, we had these 3D 360 cameras, which were cool. And there was some really awesome video footage, very immersive, where someone goes and snowboards, or you go kiteboarding, and it was very, very immersive. Yeah. You looked around and you saw the whole 360 around. It was really cool. The favorite one for me was when the two people there was a fight going on between people riding, right? And you sat in the middle where the guys ran into each other, and I just wanted to hold on to the rail. It was really freaky. But the thing that amazes me the most is that you still, with all this VR, they had to hold my hand. And there was this one thing, you talk about how you want to touch stuff, and they had this CGI created car, the Sold Systems, that you sat in. And you sat down on a chair, and that was really cool. And then they encouraged you, and what you could do is you could change the whole trim inside, and you could change options on the car. And I thought that was really interesting because that's actually more than you could ever do on a show floor. Because they would have had to have 15, 20 cars there, which isn't realistic, right? So that was actually an experience you could actually not generate in real life. When they asked us to get up and step outside the car,
Yeah.
first of all, I felt like a goofball because I was like wobbling, and then they had to hold my hand. Well, that sort of, I'm not sure if it was the experience of the technology that wasn't working, but I thought that was interesting how, yeah, there's something about seeing, and I know that HoloLens, for example, from Microsoft, really believes in this, that you see your environment, and also the ODG glasses, they're really more about mixed reality, augmented reality that I really liked. How did you experience that whole car thing? I took some videos of you. That was pretty funny.
Yeah. So, yeah, fascinating that you can actually create an environment. So you're holding a handheld device to open the door. You point it at the door handle, you press a button, and from what you see is you're sitting in a car seat and you watch the door open, and then they say, okay, step out of the car. And so I just had to laugh at myself as I'm trying to step over the sill of the car, but there is no sill of the car. I'm just sitting in a chair. I could just, right, they have you at the end, they sort of had you lean in through the window, and it's like, but there is no window. There's no, right. So all that was fascinating. It was very interesting. It was very clever. I was trying to figure out the business application, and you very wisely said, well, look, if you're selling, very, very high-end cars, or you're selling any really very high-end product where you don't want to have first of all, it may be hard to get to the showrooms because there aren't that many, and second, you don't really want somebody taking the Bentley out for a spin, the Bugatti out. You want to make sure that you're getting. Okay, I could see it at the very high end. It's got a business application as a sales application. Mostly what I saw was we're still with VR and immersive experiences. CES is a consumer electronics show. And so we were looking very much at entertainment applications. And I'm trying to figure out, right now, I don't think the value equation would have me be very interested in very many business-to-business applications, so very many enterprise applications. I'm trying to think about when I would use this and how I would use this and what would make it worth the investment. And I think we got a ways to go yet. I think we got a ways to go. But entertainment, oh, very entertaining. Very entertaining. I remember watching Avatar in supposed 3D on an IMAX screen, right? But back when Avatar came out, and then you go through some of these immersive environments, and you think, "Oh my God, can you imagine watching a movie like Avatar, where now you can look behind you and around you, and the action is happening in front of you, and you feel like you have to duck because they're all that as an entertainment possibility." Oh, very, very exciting, very exciting.
If you're just joining us now, you're watching Robert Schmid. I'm the chief IoT technologist. I don't know why I'm still stumbling over this. I've said this now for a year for Deloitte. And we're doing Coffee with Mr. IoT every Friday, 9 a.m. Today, we're reporting live from CES 2017 in Vegas. And with me, Chaz August.
I want to say this thing about CES. This time, okay, so I don't want to out you, but you like drones. So we were at DJI, and you were interested in the drones. I'm not so drone focused. So while you're looking at the drones, I wander off onto the show floor. And, I think I would rename it from consumer electronics to connected electronics. Almost everything I saw, the technology that they're really pushing is how it connects to other things. You cannot buy a speaker anymore. You can only buy a Bluetooth speaker. You cannot buy an alarm clock. You can buy a Bluetooth-enabled alarm clock. You can't buy a watch. You can buy a watch that connects to an app on your phone that connects to the right. Everything's connected. That was really, I think, the most striking thing I had was that even. We went to Corning Glass, right? You and I, we went and looked at Corning. Now, what's Corning Glass doing at a consumer electronics show? Glass is not electronic. Oh, yeah, wow. Flexible screens that you can put stuff, that you can bend, but still put wiring in, the Gorilla Glass stuff. They built a car. They must have spent $1 million on this. They built a sports car just to show off all the different ways they can use glass. Very, very, but it's all about what they're really doing. They're connecting. Everything's connected.
Remember what they said to us when we wanted to look at the car? We said, hey, can we look at the car? They said, oh, I'm sorry, we booked out. Maybe we have a spot available for you on Sunday. I said, no, thanks. We took some cool pictures. We'll post them later. Corning glass and Gorilla Glass, very interesting. So you talked about watches everywhere, right? And one of the questions I was wondering is, what are people doing around healthcare? And, you know, I have this, there's so much fitness stuff, right? I mean, you walk through the floor and right there is bicycle riders. And there's like a world-class bicycle rider riding all day long on a bicycle there, and you can get all his stats. There is sleeping aids. There's all kinds of different things around fitness and so forth. When it comes to health, what did you see? I'm still looking for that health thing that really, you know, predicts my health rather than does some simple other things that we do today.
So I noticed that the way in to the healthcare business seems to be helping health problems where it's really maintenance. Helping diabetics remember to take their medication at the schedule they're supposed to take their medication, helping people who have heart issues track their blood pressure, track their, right, helping people, right? It's really in that, what I would call maintenance. It's making it easier to keep to a regimen. And I think that's what I see in the fitness stuff too. It's reminding you and making it easier to stay to a regimen. Very little of it is, so it doesn't have that, wow, that's so cool. It rather has that, wow, that would be a good alarm. You know, that's a better alarm clock. Wow, that's better than having my watch beep every 6 hours to remind me to take my pill, right? And we did see some. We saw smart pillboxes, and we saw smart watches and smart, you know, like, I get it. But what I don't see is preventive maintenance yet. I don't see predictive maintenance. I don't see very many people. You and I, we went to one place where they're playing with analyzing your breath. Yeah. And that was interesting. That was different.
Yeah, I liked about them. They have a product called Mint right now where I didn't know this, but there's over 350 markers in our breath. And they decided to analyze first the one for oral health around bacteria. And that's out in the market. And then later this year, they're going to come out with something called Burn. And their tagline is burn body fat and stick with it. And they said that there is acetone,
yeah, acetones
levels in
they're like ketones.
Yeah, it's higher if you start burning fat instead of burning through your glucose levels. And so as a result, you can see if you're actually burning fat and therefore reducing your weight. And the guy there who was showing it to us, he's on a regimen, and he looks at it every couple hours. And he talked about how he can tell within an hour after he eats something unhealthy how his acetone levels go down because his body isn't burning fat anymore. So I thought that was quite interesting. But I don't know. I mean, I have to say that as much as I liked that, I still didn't see that device. You know, we talk all the time as the most prominent and the killer app in manufacturing and factory being preventive maintenance and predictive maintenance and preventive maintenance. And, you know, we now know to a fairly good extent what to put on what machines, and then the sensors tell us whether 70, 80, 90% accuracy before something fails. I still haven't seen the thing that I would put on me, or that I would ingest, or that I would, I don't know, have implanted for that matter, that actually goes and measures me on a regular basis to give me a baseline and say, hey, Robert, you better stop eating this because in a week you're going to get sick. Or, hey, I'm noticing you're having this in your blood. Maybe you should take some vitamin C. Or, hang on, your heart is acting up. I'd go to the doctor. You know, that sort of, I call it preventive health, and I'm not sure that's the best term, but it's the closest to that. I haven't seen it. Have you?
No. And I see us moving towards that, but I didn't see anything this year at the show, and I haven't heard of anything that has that quality of, we're going to track millions of people's blood pressure, for instance, and then we're going to figure out what's the marker that tells us who's going to have a heart attack, or who's going to have, what's the marker that tells you you're heading towards cirrhosis or a liver disease or kidney disease, right? We're not there yet, and
I want a health bit. I don't want a fit bit. I want a health bit.
Yeah, and I don't know if we'll ever be there. I don't know. And the other thing is, I'm amused, but so. Years and years ago, when I was a young pup starting out in business, I had these ideas about how to not look like I was so young. And so I used to do stupid things. So one thing is that every shirt I had cufflinks, right? And I wore a pocket watch with a gold chain because it was old fashioned and it didn't make me look like I was 22 years old, right? 23 years old. So one of the things was big fancy watches. You wore a Rolex, or you wore a big fancy watch. Actually, in New York, where I was, you wore a knockoff of a Rolex, but you wore a good knockoff. Okay, and then that all went away. First everybody was wearing these little cheap Casios, and then with cell phones, who needs a watch, right? You got a cell phone. Yeah, guess what? Watches are back, and they're back big time. They're back big time. $500 watches that are Fitbits and watches and alarm systems, and so that I was pretty impressed with. That you think that's why I said it's hard to predict the future. Watches were big, then they were nothing. Now they're big again. Expensive watches, fancy. I don't know. I don't want to wear one, but I get that people do.
So we got about 4 minutes left. One last topic you want to pick on, Jazz. What do you think?
Okay, so I want to say about the Consumer Electronics Show that often consumer electronics can be a bellwether so it can show us where we're headed, right? Where we're headed, and I had the experience as I was walking around that we're at a funny time with all this technology. The things that I was most impressed with is actually the companies like Bosch who are pushing their sensors themselves. The companies, there were companies at this consumer show that were not really pushing consumer products. They were pushing right, and that, I have to say, that gives me hope for what the application of all this connectedness may be. That I think right now, the really exciting thing is the work at the end of how do we actually get the friggin' data? How do we get it? How do we find out about it? And looking at these sensors getting smaller and smaller and more capable of reading stuff, I think is amazing.
And not just getting the data, right, but there's so much new data that gets generated so much more often, and all of it get done out on the edge. We talk often about edge processing, right, and how 40% of the processing will move to the edge. It's interesting, some people might think that's going to take away from the cloud. I actually think that this is all new data that we didn't have before, and it has to go into the cloud eventually, but there will be a lot of edge processing. But yes, there were a lot of sensors, but that's very true, and there are lots of new sensors. I still think the interesting thing to me was that the people that had the best products were the ones that totally vertically integrated it, like these guys, right?
Yeah.
And the people that had, I think there was a lot of innovation that gets lost. This is what you talk about, because it's in the sensor, it's the little bits, and you actually got to go and stitch it together, which is what we at Deloitte do, right? I mean, we're really good at that.
Yes.
But there's a lot of new sensors and stuff like out there, so I guess we'll go back today and look at some more sensors and check it out. We didn't get to talk about drones, which is my favorite personal topic.
What did you? What did you notice in the drone business? Just a moment here. Did anything catch your eye that really excited you?
No, to be honest, that's the short answer. The long answer is drones are hip. So we stand at the DJI's, they had actually 2 different booths. We stayed at one booth. I'm standing in line, third in line. I'm so happy. I think I'm going to get to fly the drone I'd like to have, but they're sold out. And then Fox walks in right in front of me, cuts in line and videotapes. So I have to say the media seem to be very interested in the drones. I think they pay a lot more attention to that. So they seem to think there's something there. But what I missed was sort of like the day-to-day business use. They still feel like toys to me. And I
Yes.
think there's something
Me too.
about, they're either huge and big and look really intimidating, or they're a toy to do videotaping, right? I haven't really seen this app. You know, I keep talking about this agricultural example where the drone flies over, takes individual images of plants, and then devises a pesticide plan or a fertilization plan. Those kind of things. Maybe was the wrong show, but I would have liked to see more real business use of drones. Because I know it's out there, it just wasn't there. So I missed that, and that's because of my no.
I'll give you a funny thought about that. We saw one booth that had these little tiny drones, quadcopters that were like the size of, I don't know what.
Yeah, that's the one I got to fly, the only
Yeah.
one all day.
So it had me think of, my mind went to, I wonder how small these can be. Are we headed toward an age of like nano drones? And it's not so much about delivering big things. It's about like, you know, could we train drones to be like bees, to build things and to do things, you know, like little nano drones. And that part I thought was kind of cool. These little things. So anyway, that's where my mind
now we've got to the Jetson age. Thank you so much for being here with me, dreaming with me, and also talking about the real things. You've been watching Coffee with Mr. IoT. My name is Robert Schmid. I am Deloitte's Chief IoT Technologist, and with me, Chaz August, producer of this show, and who helps us with IoT marketing. We are back on next week, Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. And if you missed part of this or want to rewatch, please come to my YouTube channel and watch it at your leisure. With that, happy Friday, everyone. Bye. Thanks, Chaz.